first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word psychopath? Do you know how to interact with one if you're ever to meet one in the workplace? Today, my teammates Alec, Luke, and I will tell you what is a psychopath, what the characteristics of a psychopath in the workplace, potential effects of working with a psychopath, and what to do if you're ever to encounter one. The goal of this presentation is to present to you how to deal with psychopaths in the workplace because it is not unlikely that you will meet one while you're working.
Hello, everyone. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, what is a psychopath? In the beginning, I'd like to present to you, in the corner, we have Patrick Bateman from the movie American Psycho. And that's not what we're going to be talking about today. Psychopaths aren't the typical Hollywood murderers you'll see, and I want to help define that better. In the beginning, I'd like to open with a quote by Dr. Robert Hare. The begin quote, "The vast majority of psychopaths are not in prison. They function pretty well from their own perspective. If they have the breeding, intelligence, and know how to dress and talk, many don't have to break the law to get what they want." By Dr. Robert Hare, The Times. This quote helps to begin bringing perspective to what a true and a real psychopath can be defined as, instead of allowing any false media or idea to take the image of what a true psychopath is. Psychopath is the term used to describe a person who is callous, unemotional, and morally depraved, often mistaken for the term sociopath, which is defined as a person with a personality disorder and extreme antisocial attitudes and behavior with a lack of conscience. It is found in a general study that 29% of a general population exhibit at least one trait of a psychopath, while only about 6.6% are likely to fit the definition of a full psychopath. To end what is a psychopath, we have a TED Talk from John Ronson, who helps promote what it's like to be in an environment from a psychopath that has corporate experience by having a quick snippet of his conversation with one.
Myself some corporate psychopaths. So I gave it a try. I wrote to the Enron people. I said, can I come and interview you in prison to find out if you're psychopaths? They didn't reply. So I changed tack. I emailed Chainsaw Al Dunlap, the asset stripper from the 1990s. He would come into failing businesses and close down 30% of the workforce, just turn American towns into ghost towns. And I emailed him and I said, I believe you may have a very special brain anomaly that makes you special, interested in the predatory spirit and fearless. Can I come and interview you about your special brain anomaly? And he said, come on over. So I went to our Dunlap's grand Florida mansion that was filled with sculptures of predatory animals. There were lions and tigers. He was taking me through the garden. There were falcons and eagles. He was saying to me over there, you've got sharks and more. He was saying this in a less effeminate way. You've got more sharks and you've got tigers. It was like Narnia. And then we went into his kitchen. Now, our Dunlap would be brought in to save failing companies. He'd close down 30% of the workforce, and he'd quite often fire people with a joke. Like, for instance, one famous story about him, somebody came up to him and said, I've just bought myself a new car. And he said, well, you may have a new car, but I'll tell you what you don't have, a job. So in his kitchen, he was standing there with his wife, Judy, and his bodyguard, Sean. And I said, you know how I said in my email that you might have a special brain anomaly that makes you special? And he said, yeah, it's an amazing theory. It's like Star Trek. You're going where no man has gone before. And I said, well, some psychologists might say that this makes you... And he said, what?
So as you can see from that TED Talk, that in his brief interaction with the psychopath, that he was a little bit narcissistic, proud of himself, And you could see why that he's excelled in the corporate workplace, as he was brought in to pretty much cut off workers from their jobs. And he did it without a joke, showing the unemotional and callousness of a psychopath.
So the characteristics of a psychopath in the workplace. In a Forbes article on how to deal with psychopaths in the workplace, Amy Moore describes psychopaths as charming, carefree, aggressive, and lack empathy. She also says that compared to other psychopaths, they are less irresponsible, impulsive, and negligent. So also in the workplace, psychopaths can be fearless and skilled at influencing others. It is not surprising that they can work their way to the top because of this skill that people don't pick out as being a psychopath. In our organizational behavior class textbook, it states that psychopaths can be aggressive and lack concern for others, guilt, or remorse when their own actions do other harm. This causes counterproductive actions in the workplace. And in the Journal of Business Ethics, Clyde Bundy says, witnessing bullying goes from 54.7% to 93.3% when corporate psychopaths are present. In considering that corporate psychopaths only make up 1% of the employee population, this is a big change in the way the workplace works when a psychopath is around.
Now, some potential effects of working with a psychopath. In the article, Working with Monsters, Counting the Cost of Workplace Psychopaths and Other Toxic Employees, Clark quotes, "Workplace psychopaths exist in a variety of workplaces. They are individuals who manipulate their way through life and leave indelible on both their victims and society. They are destructive men and women, cunning, self-centered, ruthless, and terrifying. They make working life a living hell for many of us." It's declared in the article as well that after heavy research conducted, it has been established that often more times than not, working with a corporate psychopath can lead to destructive effects on co-workers' health. These effects go on to be directly correlated to mental health issues such as depression, emotional exhaustion. Additionally, the overwhelming feeling of fear and frustration are demonstrated with stress symptoms. There's the increased risk of suicide with working with a psychopath, and then the overall deterioration of physical health. As the mind starts to go, the rest of the body does as well. In light of these findings, it is not set in stone that these negative effects will directly happen in correlation with working alongside a psychopath. However, there's little to no data that can promote any benefits or cancel out the negatives with working with a psychopath. The only actual benefits itself that seems to coexist are the successful presentation of the company and usually cutting ranks, as we heard from the video before.
Ways how to interact with psychopath in the workplace. First thing you must do is staying calm and collected when you're dealing with psychopath is important, because one thing that psychopath flourish when they can control other people's emotions. A second tip is you must be assertive, because once a psychopath coworker realize that they could bully you, they will use that knowledge against you to manipulate you into doing something that you aren't supposed to be doing. So hold your ground. And one of the last tips is reading a psychopath body language. A psychopath lies to improve their own image. People don't realize that they are being deceived because their non-verbal conduct is so convincing and distracting.
So recap and reminders. Psychopaths are not just serial killers that you see in documentaries and movies. They are people who are unemotional and morally deprived, but still live and work in the same settings that other people without psychopathic tendencies live and work. Only 1% of the employee population are corporate psychopaths, but make up for 26% of the bullying in the workplace, according to the 2010 Journal of Business Ethics. Now, this may seem like a small number, but the effects that corporate psychopaths have on other coworkers is so big that it's important that you pay attention to the characteristics that were described earlier. When those characteristics of a psychopath are spotted, it's important that you do not underestimate them, but understand that what they can do and be aware of their actions and words.
All right. For slide 7, this is the reference that we looked up for our work. And thank you for tuning in on how to my fault. All right. Slide 8, thank you for tuning in to how to encounter with psychopath at your work job.